Well, President Cyril Ramaphosa is expected to address the unemployment crisis in the country when he delivers his State of the Nation address later today. The country's unemployment rate at this point remains at 29%, and it's even higher among young people. Joining me now is Dr. Tasmia Ismail-Saville. She is the CEO of the Youth Employment Service. Dr. Saville, thank you very much for your time. 55% is the official unemployment rate among young people. Why is this picture not improving?
We need economic growth. I think that's the first big issue. If you have an economy that's not growing, you aren't going to be creating jobs. Business creates jobs, government doesn't create jobs. And if business confidence is low, and you try going to a business and talking to them about upping their head count, they're not going to be open to it because they're not selling. So this is the first one. But when we look at economic growth rates, we're talking about growth rates in excess of 5% before we start creating jobs. That's the first issue.
Let me ask you this. The initiatives like the one that you run, the YES initiative, they are meant to be, I guess, the bridge. You are meant to facilitate things like internships for young people in order for them to get a foot in the work environment. How is that going? I'm going to ask you next about how the picture looks provincially.
So I think we're doing well. If you look at the national picture, the economic headwinds we face, going to companies, because we go to business and we approach business to create brand new jobs. And we're trying not to do them all in urban centres. We're trying to push them out into communities, into the provinces where we see these enormously high unemployment rates, unacceptably high unemployment rates. So we have jobs in rural Mpumalanga, across KwaZulu-Natal. I'm very proud to say, despite the economic context, we have done over 32,000 jobs. The number yesterday was 32,142, and this is in an economy which as a whole shed jobs last year. So I think given the circumstances, we've done incredibly well. And this is because we have an enabling environment through a policy change. So the DTI enacted a policy change on the BE scorecard. Firms that join YES are able to get 1 and 2 levels up on their BE scorecard if they invest in youth jobs. Now, those are the kinds of strategic and designed programs we are going to need to get youth into the workplace. And we need more of them.
Which sectors are absorbing these young people?
So we are trying to work with sectors where you don't need a tertiary education, because the bulk of our youth are actually sitting without a matric or just a matric certificate. The graduate unemployment rate is actually considerably lower than the general unemployment rate for youth. So we're looking at about 7 million youth that are out of employment, and the bulk of those have no matric. So the jobs we're looking at, look, if a company is taking young people into their head office, they're looking for grads. But we're also placing people with no matric and matric in tourism, in agriculture, in green and blue economy, recycling programs, clearing of non-indigenous plants. So there are incredible work opportunities with social impact that we can create at community level.
Critical question. How does the unemployment picture look in the far-flung areas? That's the rural setting.
Well, this is the real problem. This is that structural piece sitting that there's no growth happening outside of our urban centres. So if you look at Gauteng and you look at Western Cape, those are the lower unemployment rates nationally. You go to Limpopo, you go to the Eastern Cape, we're sitting over 44%. Unemployment. And so we've got to create economic activities and pathways for young people to enter the workforce into these jobs like agri and construction, where you don't need graduate certificates to get a job.
Final question, and you are allowed to be unkind to the president. 2 million jobs to be created over a period of 10 years. Is that good enough? I know you work with him, but really?
Well, YES is an NPO. We're business funded, so we don't use government money to create these jobs. How we work is as an experiment with legislation from government and money from the private sector. That's the union that we create. I think that the president's experimenting with models like YES are very innovative approaches to try new ways of tackling this problem. The issues the president faces are not going to be resolved overnight. We have deep structural issues. If you have so many young people who are not finishing school, the problems are starting from way before. Ideally, we want a situation where the Youth Employment Service doesn't exist because we are training youth through a pipeline to become entrepreneurs, to drive small business. But it is not the work of one president. We need government across departments to work together. We need business to come to the party, and we need confidence to return. And I think that's the big one. If we can get business confidence, business will be a better place to start hiring youth and creating these jobs. And young people will find the workplace a lot more opportune for new businesses, which is really where young people need to find work, is in small businesses. And they need to create them.
Dr. Tasmia Ismail-Saville, thank you very much for your time. She is the CEO of the Youth Employment Service.